There's a lot of movement. Breakfast is being served, so I invite you at home, if you were still holding on to your toast and not having it as yet, you're welcome to have it. Share the breakfast with us as well. Now, we'll be joined in a few moments by the Minister responsible for the portfolio Women, Children and People with Disabilities. But for now, just to focus on matters of revenue. So, Commissioner, just talking about meeting this new revised target, what are some of the weaknesses currently in the system that you are looking to address that will give you that impetus to move towards this new revised target? What are some of the weaknesses?
The Minister in his speech, Vuyo, mentioned that the voluntary disclosure program, which closed last year in October. And through that process, which was a sort of coming clean for taxpayer, an opportunity for them to come clean and disclose all the other skeletons that they might have in the cupboards. There were about 18,000 applications for that disclosure program, and we have learned a few things after analyzing the type of sort of amnesty that people were asking for. Some of the things that have emerged, as the Minister mentioned, was some aggressive planning by high net worth individuals, where they use very complex webs of trust to try and minimize aggressively some of their tax liabilities. We have seen people who collect pay as you earn and do not hand it over to the fiscus.
Okay.
Yes, this is a national sport. It was a national sport, let me put it that way, in Greece.
Okay.
Where you collect money that it belongs to the fiscus and you keep it for yourself.
Yes.
And we know what happened to Greece.
What is the challenge? What is the disincentive? What makes it difficult for people to act, or organizations, to act as the conduit that they are meant to be for these particular funds?
Well, it's a withholding tax, and the rules around withholding tax are very clear. That it's not your money. You cannot use it as cash flow to run your business or your own life. So the rules are very clear. It's a criminal offense to take money that doesn't belong to you. This is trust money that cannot be used in any other way except for the intention that it was meant, and that is it should be paid over to the National Revenue Fund. So the rules are clear. Anybody that takes advantage and abuses it, they know very clearly that it's not supposed to happen. So you asked me, Vuyo, earlier to say, what gives us so much confidence that this target can be achieved? And the Minister mentioned it in his speech also, to say we must thank South Africans who are compliant. We have one of the best compliance culture in the world, and we do speak to many tax administrations around the world. We are very proud, particularly given the background and the history of our country, where, if you remember, coming from subjugation, we said, until freedom, there is no tax that has been paid. And the steps and the progress that we have made as a nation, I think, is commendable. Now, the big issue, as the Minister has said, is how do you protect and make sure that you preserve that culture to endure until the next generations. And for that, we are very confident that with all the interventions that we have, we will continue to build on compliance. And remember, compliance is not just to tax, it's to all the laws in the country. So it's an indicative sign, if you have high levels of tax compliance.
Right.
Yes, that compliance to all other regulatory things would also be in the right trajectory.
Just in the medical sphere, changing some of the elements there, medical taxation as well?
Yes, yeah, we have moved from, medical being treated as a deduction to a credit. And that is particularly also to encourage equity in the system, so that if you have a higher marginal tax rate, your benefit is kept to an extent of the credit that is allowable,
right,
rather than using your income, because as you know, and that's why NHI has been introduced, to make sure that everybody has access to healthcare, and it's not an issue that you can afford it and you cannot afford it that determines your access.
But how is it going to work? I mean, what do you then expect medical schemes to do in this regard?
Yes, before you used to have a system where you would claim a deduction based on the expense that you have incurred during your medical processes that you are going through. So what is happening now is we have introduced credit levels.
Okay.
For example, for your first beneficiary, you will get a credit of 230. Whether you are earning 100,000 or 1 million or whatever, so it was kept according to it's kept according to the credit rather than according to your earning potential.
All right. We're in conversation with the Commissioner of the Revenue Service, Oupa Magashule. If you'd like to ask a question, you're welcome to do that. You're also welcome to tweet Waretimbuli Vuyo. You can send us at the N Manners as well, and you can send us an email, morninglive@sabc.co.za. Also joining us is Minister for the Portfolio, Women, Children and People with Disabilities. Minister, did the budget go far enough in addressing gender issues?
Well, Vuyo, to start off with, the budget was silent on women and people with disabilities. But also you can see in this room, without spoiling anybody's breakfast, it's a hall full of men. So I think this corresponds to the minuscule budget that has been allocated to women, children, and people with disabilities.
May I ask you, Minister, is this an issue that you raise in Cabinet? There was a Cabinet meeting yesterday morning, wasn't there? But also there's a build-up to the building of the budget itself. I mean, these are issues that you raise. What kind of feedback do you get?
Yes, these are issues that we're raising throughout the year, not just yesterday, that we have raised directly with the Ministry of Finance, that I have raised even today with the Minister. But we're not going to complain and complain. We are now launching what we call the Women's Budget Initiative, which will be launching at lunchtime at the Mount Nelson Hotel in partnership with the Mutsipe Foundation. Because this is not just an issue for government alone. It's an issue also for the private sector. How much are they budgeting towards the economic empowerment of women? How many women are CEOs of companies registered in the stock exchange in South Africa? How many women sit on the boards of those companies? These are some of the issues that we're going to examine through the Women's Budget Initiative. And we'll be partnering with the Mutsipe Foundation, but also with various women's organizations, because this is an issue of great concern to women.
The women's budget, what are some of the other issues it will focus on, especially when you talk about the minuscule allocation in the budget focusing on women and people with disabilities? How are you going to address the financial capacitation issues, as it were?
Yes, we'll be working with the Mutsipe Foundation and other women's organizations to analyze the budget and look at the impact it has had in the lives of women in South Africa. We're also going to look at other departments. How far have they gone in engendering their budgets? We will also look at the private sector. What are they doing to ensure that resources are also targeting women, including women in the rural areas?
You're undertaking a journey to the United States this coming weekend. There's a presentation you're going to be making. Just give us a little bit more detail about this journey and who you will be talking to about women issues in this regard.
As we all know, South Africa is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, but also we have signed and ratified the Beijing Platform for Action. And therefore, we are called upon every year to go and report to the United Nations on progress we have made. And we will be going this weekend to attend the Commission on the Status of Women. And the focus for this year is empowering rural women to fight poverty and hunger. And one of the sub-themes is budgeting financing for gender equality, which is one of the areas that we are looking at and that we'll be looking at throughout the year through the Women's Budget Initiative.
If I ask you, Minister, just about the budget, what could have been done differently to address gender issues and in particular issues that affect women and people with disabilities?
I think it is important that when we talk about the green jobs, when we talk about the billions that are going to job creation, how much of that is allocated to women? How much of that will be targeting women? When we talk about infrastructure, which is a beautiful plan of our government, how do we ensure that women also participate in the construction, participate also in the tenders that will be going out? We've had a number of tenders. We have had the redistribution of land in our country. How much of that land is actually going to rural women? Those are the questions. Those are the questions that the budget must answer.
Thank you very much. Lulu Xingwana is Minister responsible for the portfolio women, people and children and people with disabilities. What we're going to do is take another break. We will continue after this. Stay with us.